Shannon, and I'm going to guide you through a 30-minute stretch and yoga class based around getting into the hips. So if you have props nearby, a couple blocks would be ideal, or a bolster. If you don't have yoga props, you could use folded towels or a folded blanket. They will also help. I'd like to get started by coming into tabletop position, hands and knees. From hands and knees, we're going to let the hips gently rock side to side. After rocking side to side, you'll come to center and your weight will start to shift forward and back. You can decide how far you go back, how far you go forward. We'll meet back at tabletop. Bring your knees a little bit closer together. Lift your right knee up off the floor and begin to take it in a circle. The knee will stay bent. Try to think of all the different planes of movement that you can move through. So the knee goes forward, out to the side, to the back, and then wraps down and around. We'll do a few circles in this direction. And then you'll pause and you'll go the opposite direction. We're going to keep the arms strong and straight. Belly will be firm. Maximizing the range of motion in your hip. I will return back to neutral and we'll start on the other side. Now the snorkels might start small and slow, and then as things start to move a little freer, you might be able to go faster or bigger. And check to make sure that you're not leaning your weight into one hand and perhaps bending your one elbow or the other. Keep the arms strong and straight, keep the belly firm, and switching directions when you feel like it's time. Good, and we'll release back to tabletop. Knees all the way together, ankle bones touching, toes together, untucked. And we're going to slide back into a child's pose, hips to heels. Arms will walk out nice and long in front, and the forehead will come onto something. We'll take a few breaths here just to settle in. We'll rise back up into tabletop. And from tabletop, we're coming into our frog pose. We thought we'd get the hardest ones out of the way. You may have to turn sideways onto your mat so that you can take your knees wider, unless you're on carpet. So we're going to dike the knees away from each other. Hips are still stacked over top of knees, but now taken wide. And you're going to bring the insides of your ankles to the floor. When you look back, you'll see like you've created a 90-degree angle between your hip, your knee, and your ankle. You're going to continue to walk your knees apart until you reach where you feel that there's some restriction. You've reached your max, and then you'll stop there. You may have to back off about 10 to 20% if you've gone too far, which we tend to sometimes. And if you can't get your ankles to turn out so that the insides are down, you could have your toes pointed and slightly brought together as if you would in child's pose. But if you can get the rotation through the lower leg, we'll work here. Once you're here, option to stay right here up on your hands and just letting things try to soften and relax as the knees perhaps go wider. Or you're welcome to lower down onto forearms or forearms onto your prop. Once you've come down, you're a bit more stable, you can start to experiment with perhaps letting your hips move a bit farther forward. You might be able to get them to go wider in the knees again, and then gently pressing your hips back. And you'll find where you can hold and maintain, the breath will be even. There might be strong sensation, but there shouldn't be pain. Pain is characterized by sharp, sudden numbness or tingling. A strong sensation is something that you can stay with and breathe through. So we want to go where there's a strong sensation and no pain. You can move and micro adjust as many times in this shape as you need to. Ideally, you'd find where you've got a strong sensation and then close down the eyes. Start to settle into relaxing the muscles that have the most restriction, and then we just stay for time. And if we can get a couple minutes in, that would be ideal. It's usually at about the 1.5 to 2 minute mark that we start to feel the body responding. You may be able to adjust your posture, perhaps getting a little bit wider through the knees again. You may feel like you have to make some smaller adjustments with the positioning of your feet or your upper body. You're going to keep the belly firm as you're holding, protecting your low back, and giving yourself the time again just to be in the shape. Try to relax as deeply as you can. And we'll stay here just for a little bit longer. Now to get out of the shape, you may have to bring your feet closer together and inch your way back towards tabletop or center. Once you get the knees all the way back together, we'll meet at tabletop and then slide back into child's pose, hips to heels. This time, perhaps taking your arms back towards the feet, forehead onto a proper to the floor. We'll come back up, tabletop position. Couple rounds through our spinal flow. You're going to let the belly drop. The tailbone will naturally want to point up towards the ceiling. Gaze will go forward. And then tip of the tailbone pointing down, back rounding up. You can move in and out of these two shapes. And then perhaps adding on so that you get hip to shoulder on one side and then the other. Or letting the weight shift forward and back in either of those two positions. You may be able to work your way into a figure 8 shape between the hips and the shoulders. And we're going for a loosening up of the muscles that support the hips. We want side body, low back, belly, all to be moving nice and freely. And we're going to come back to our tabletop. We're going to step the left foot forward. And the back knee is going to stay where it is for now. We've got two pretty close to 90-degree angles in our knees and our legs. If you need a bit more padding, add it. And then just take a moment here. We're going to rise up, hands to forward knee. From here, we're going to do a little bit more work to loosen up through the side waist so that we can get into the low back and then, of course, into the hips. Right arm's going to reach up and you're going to lean to the left. Okay, you can start to activate almost like a Michael Jackson move, a little pelvic thrust. So push the hips forward, squeeze the glute, and then continue to side bend over to the left. We'll rise up and keep your legs the same, but switch your side bend. So right hand to right hip, left hand reaches, and then a gentle side bend to the right. Now we'll bring our hands back down. We'll frame the front foot, and you're going to straighten the front leg. You may have to adjust your back knee farther back for a few of you. Straightening and sending the hips back. Now we're folding over a straight forward leg. Option to keep the top of the foot pressing down. You'll feel a nice stretch to the top of the foot. Or if you feel it would be more of a benefit, you're going to pull your toes back and you'll feel the stretch now more through the calf muscle and through the Achilles. You could also hold and rotate forward and back. So pressing the toes down and then lifting the toes off. Now we're going to come back into the bend in the forward knee. We're going to bring our hands to the inside of the left foot and then walk the hands over to the right. I want you to think about downward facing dog arms in your lizard lunge. So arms are strong and straight, they've spread out in front of you. They're off your mat. You can adjust the angle of your left knee. And then your choice is to either leave your back knee down or to power the back knee up. We're going to hold here. You're going to be pushing out through the back heel. You're pressing down through the whole sole of your front foot. You've got your left knee close to the left rib cage. And you've walked your hands out and away from you, bowing down. Now we're going to walk our hands back in so that they're on the inside of the left foot. You're going to keep them here, but you may have to rise up onto fingertips. Whether your back knee is down or lifted, doesn't matter. We're going to lift the back knee now and straighten both legs. Hands again are on the inside of the left foot. You can have them on props. Both legs are straight and you're bowing down towards the floor. You can walk your hands out farther or come down onto forearms if you have the space. Bending back into the forward knee, frame the front foot. You're going to let the back knee come down. We're stepping the left foot back, right foot forward. 90 degrees on the legs for starting here. We'll rise up, hands to the forward knee. Left hand reaches up. Squeeze the glute, pelvic tilt forward, and then side bend to your right. Release and we'll come back up. Right arm lifts, side bend to the left. And we'll come back up. Hands are going to come down again to the floor, straighten the front leg. Again, you may feel like you would like to adjust your back knee, perhaps going back a little farther, depending on your mobility. Front foot is either pressing down or you're alternating from pressing to lifting the toes. We want the front leg to be straight. You're bending over the front leg. Hips are being sent back. Bending back into the forward knee. Hands come to the inside of your right foot. Again, the option to keep the back knee down or to lift it. You're walking your hands out and away from you. Think like downward facing dog arms. Right knee is close to the right shoulder to the right rib cage. And we're going to hold. Just another breath or two. Know that you've always got the option of back knee lowering down or alternating between lifted and lowered. We'll bring our hands back to the inside of the right foot. Both legs will straighten. So if you had your back knee down, you'll lift it. Both legs will straighten. You'll be pushing down through the back heel. You'll be down, bowing over the hands. You can always walk them farther out if you need more space, or have them on props if you need to be a bit higher up. Bending into the forward knee, frame the front foot, and stepping back. Back knee could come down, stepping back either to table or, if you prefer, downward facing dog. Rock the hips around, move them, bend one knee, bend the other. From either table or down dog, whichever you've chosen, we're going to come into our pigeon pose. And I'm going to offer a slightly different variation in case you want to have a deeper sensation today. So, your choice to either bring the right knee forward, positioning your shin and your foot down so that you can have some comfort, perhaps a right prop underneath the right sit bone. Or if you want to come a little bit deeper into the shape, from your down dog, you bring your right foot forward, and I want you to take your right big toe and hook it on your left wrist so that your right shin now comes down like it's parallel to the top of your mat. You may not be able to lower all the way. I like to keep my foot hooked on my wrist until I can get maybe the back leg to come down, or maybe to find a little bit more comfort with a prop underneath the right sit bone. And then once you're down, you could always release your arms forward and lower yourself. If this is quite challenging for you, of course you know that you could just bring your foot a little bit closer to your left hip, angle the knee more, square the hips and settle there. Sometimes when we try to bring our leg more parallel to the front, it wants to keep sliding back. And that's when you may, if you want to stay, you may have to keep the foot hooked in order to keep the angle. Either way, whichever one you've chosen, we want to have the hips level, the back leg strong and straight. You can either stay on your hands or lower to the forearms. I'd like to encourage you to move around frequently in pigeon. So rocking the hips slightly side to side, pressing a little bit more on one side and then letting it go to the other. Perhaps making micro adjustments with the angle of your back leg. You can tuck your back toe, lift your knee a few times, let it come back down. Or playing with the angle of your front leg and foot. You can have a flexed foot, trying to lift the ankle off the mat. So it'll create a lot of strength and awareness in the outer leg. Or perhaps having the top of the foot down and working more on getting the hips to be level. Just have a little bit more time here. Make sure the breath is even. Again, you want the sensations to be strong with no pain. Now, if you've lowered yourself down, get yourself back up onto the hands, tuck the back toe, lift your back knee, back leg, and ease your way back to either down dog or table. Move around. And we'll go to the other side. Left knee, left foot coming forward. You can try the hook on the ankle, or wrist, sorry. Or you can go to having your foot coming back a little farther towards the opposite hip. Key here is that the knee is not being compromised or put at risk for injury. So we want to make sure that the knee feels good. There may be some strong sensations in the hips, as long as, again, there's nothing sharp or tingly causing numbness. 911 signals we want to avoid. But there could be quite a strong sensation. You're going to see if you can stay with that sensation, relaxing the muscles that are experiencing the change the most, and micro movements while you hold in the shape. Just a few more breaths. Make sure you've done a few of those micro adjustments, micro movements, changing angles just slightly, making sure that you get different sensations during the time that you're holding the shape. We don't want the body to get too used to one particular sensation. We want to have movement. If you're down on your forearms, you'll be rising back up to the palms. Tucking the back toe, lifting the back knee, and shuffling yourself back to either table or down dog. And we'll bring the knees down to the mat and swing your feet out in front. This is where you may need your props to assist the shape. We're coming into our firelog pose. You may want to have a little bit of a lift under your sit bones. We're going to start with the right foot being on the bottom. I'd like you to flex your right foot really strongly and think about the action involved with taking the outside of your right bone, that right ankle bone, off the floor. So you're going to flex the foot and then you're going to think about lifting the ankle bone off the floor. So you're on the outside edge of your right foot, 90 degree in your right knee. So the front of your shin is parallel to the top of your mat. You can try to keep that as you take your left leg and now stack it on top. So left ankle to right knee, foot is flexed just like the one on the bottom, 90 degree angle on the left knee. And then lifting your hips, shifting the weight of your hips so that the left knee now comes towards the right ankle. This is where the prop may have to come in to support you, and you can have as much height or as many props as you need. Ideally, you'll keep both of your feet strongly flexed with the action of lifting your ankle bone away from either the floor or your bottom leg. So there's quite a bit of action and muscular involvement to hold that flexed foot and then to try to stack them on top. So when you're in the full pose, when you look down, it looks like you actually only have one leg. The shins are stacked like two pieces of wood and ankles are on knees, knees are on ankles. And then we have this strong flexing action in the foot so that we've got a strong muscular engagement along the outside edge of the shin bone. If you find your way here and you need more sensation, you're going to add the forward fold. It will make holding the ankle bone off the floor considerably more challenging. You're going to see if you can keep it, building up the strength of the muscle as you fold forward to deepen the sensation in the hips. Now, if you can't keep the flex of the ankle bone coming off the floor, allow it to relax. And maybe the focus is more on the hips or more on the forward fold. Sometimes once you come forward, you can reactivate the muscle to lift the ankle bone off the floor and stay forward. So play with it. We're here for a few breaths. Rise up if you've gone forward. We're going to switch the legs. So the left leg now will become the bottom leg. Again, see if you can create the action, the muscular contraction to keep the ankle bone lifted off the floor. Foot is strongly flexed, 90 degree angle, and stacking the opposite leg on top. Again, almost always you'll have to lift your hips, evenly weight through the sit bones, make some adjustments to the placement of your legs, and then see where you can go with props or without. Again, you can add the forward fold if you want to go a little deeper, a little farther. If you've never practiced firelog pose before with the strongly flexed ankles and the action of lifting the ankle bones, the reason why we practice this is for preparation for our arm balances as our practice progresses. So this action is needed. You can also use this same action in your pigeon pose to help deepen your pigeon pose and get a little bit deeper into the hips. That's also a nice way to strengthen the muscles of the lower leg, the ankle, and as well as aligning the knee. So know that you can either add it in addition to your practice, or you can disregard it for today and go to where you normally work. We're going to rise back up. You can unravel your legs. Come so that you're back into the middle of your mat, knees are bent. And have your props, if you have them, whatever they are, on the sides of your mat so that you don't have to sit back up. And we're coming down to do our twisted roots. So this is our last posture. We're going to do, of course, both sides. And this is for getting into the hips, but it's our last posture, so a little more relaxed, a little less muscular engagement for the posture. And the props are there to assist you. You may have quite a difference between one side to the other. Again, the hope here is that there's a strong sensation in the hips. There will be a spinal rotation. So you're going to want to adjust with the props so that you're not putting yourself in a position where you're gripping or holding. We want to be relaxed for this one. So we're going to make our way onto the back. First few moments as you come down, lift the hips, lift the chest, tuck the shoulder blades under. Have your props within reach of your hands. Take a moment to stretch the arms up overhead. And then relax the arms wherever they naturally want to rest. And to start by letting the knees gently sway side to side. Notice if you can already feel tightness or stiffness in the outsides of the hips. We'll come back to center. We're going to take the right knee over the left, looks like you're crossing your legs in a chair. And then, if it's available, hooking your right foot around your calf or your ankle. You may need to use your hands as you gently lift your hips and tap them to the right. And then, if you're using a prop, it'll be to the left-hand side. You're going to let your knees come over to the left. So it's right knee on top, the hips go to the right, the knees go to the left. We have a spinal rotation and we have a stretch through the outside of the right hip for most of us. If possible, we want the shoulders to be down and relaxed on the mat. The right shoulder might be slightly lifted. Adjust the placement of your right arm so that it can be supported. And then rest. Your gaze could go in any direction. And over time, you may feel that you could slide out your prop or adjust it so you get a deeper sensation again. We'll stay here for about a minute. Now I'll encourage you to continue to micro move your right arm, perhaps reaching it up higher or farther up to the side. Bringing the elbow down farther, you'll find that as you move your right arm around, you'll get different sensations through the front of the shoulder, through the pec, and perhaps into the upper back. So you want to have as many experiences as possible in each shape. Now, if you've turned your head, you'll want to come it back to center. You may want to relieve any tension that you created in your right arm. Left hand can now assist your knees back up to center. Once you're at center, unwind the legs, readjust your hips, perhaps a couple windshield wipers with the legs. And then if you were using props, of course, they'd be moved to the right hand side. And we'll switch. So left knee over right. Again, the hook or the wrap is optional, so this would be our eagle legs. Hips lift and tap to the left, knees will come to the right. Once you've found the support, the legs can now be relaxed. Position your left arm so that the left shoulder can come towards the floor if it's not already. Or readjust your shoulder blades so that you can get a nice stretch and release through the left pec, the left shoulder, the upper back. And then adjusting your gaze. And again, we'll hold here for about a minute. You should have an opportunity to gently slide out or alter the prop underneath your knees. Maybe give yourself a bit more time before you do that. And we'll hold here. If you've turned your head, bring it back to center. Release any tension from your left arm. Right hand now can gently assist your knees back to center. Unravel the legs. Shift the hips. Couple windshield wipers. And then your option is to come back to center. Either rock forward and back to rise up, or roll to one side and press up to seated. I will end in our butterfly pose. Soles of the feet together, knees open wide. If butterfly pose is pretty comfortable for you, maybe this is a place that you've come often enough that it's without a lot of sensation, I'm going to encourage you to switch up your butterfly pose back to either the firelog or a shoelace pose as being your easy pose. And see if your shoelace or firelog pose is now eventually just as comfortable as butterfly. If butterfly still has sensations for you, enjoy it here. You can have props under the knees. You can work with a tall spine or you can lean forward. And as much time as you can spare to stand here, I'd encourage you to do so. I hope you've enjoyed this 30-minute hip focus. Take care, and I hope to guide you again soon. Namaste.